Wake up, sleepyhead. Did you forget you were getting married today?
Yes, Rika, I know. Ugh.
He's getting married. I'm so happy for him. He's found his person.
I vow to love you, cherish you, and be your partner in all things,
I vow to support you, honor you, and build our dreams together.
forever and always.
Forever and always.
The morning of the wedding, I woke up to 17 missed calls, all from a number Rika had registered in my phone as "Do Not Panic But." I called her back immediately because nothing says calm down like a contact name that specifically instructs you not to panic. "What's wrong?" I said, already sitting up in bed at the hotel where the groomsmen had spent the night, my heart doing something unreasonable at 6 in the morning. "Nothing's wrong," Rika said, entirely too brightly for someone who had called 17 times. "I just wanted to make sure you were awake in case something was wrong, which it isn't, but I wanted to be prepared to tell you calmly if it was." That's not how preparation works. It's exactly how preparation works. Also, quick question, unrelated to any potential crisis. Do you know if Rita's allergic to shellfish? Because there might be a shrimp situation with the appetizers, and I want to be ready either way. "She's not allergic to shellfish, Rika." "Great, perfect, no panic required. See you at the venue." She hung up before I could ask a single follow-up question, which I had learned over 4 years was simply how Rika operated whenever she decided a piece of information was need to know only in the event of actual disaster. There was, it turned out, no shrimp situation. There was, however, and I only learned this later, secondhand, from Mira, who related with the specific glee of someone who'd survived the crisis she hadn't caused, a genuine flower emergency roughly 4 hours before the ceremony, when the Protea shipment from South Carolina arrived looking, in Rika's own words, personally offended by the flight. Half the blooms wilted from a delayed connection. Rika did not panic. Rika, I would learn, had apparently kept the original florist number saved specifically in case of exactly this scenario, called in a favor nobody knew she'd banked, and had an emergency batch driven in from 2 states over, arriving with 90 minutes to spare and looking, by every account, better than the original order. "I told you I had contingency plans," she informed me later, with the specific satisfaction of a woman who had never once doubted herself. "There was a whole tab. You saw the tab." I did see the tab. "The tab saved the wedding, Junho. I need that acknowledged." The ceremony itself was, against every reasonable expectation given everything that led up to it, perfect. Rita walked down the aisle in the dress she actually chose, the original one. No drama silhouette, no group chat vote, on the arm of her father, who cried before she had even made it halfway, which set off a chain reaction through the front 2 rows that included, notably, my own father, a man I had personally never once seen cry in 28 years of being his son. My mother wept openly and without apology. My grandmother, seated between Susie and an increasingly emotional Mrs. Cho, a family friend who had known Rita for exactly 1 wedding season and somehow already adopted her with the same intensity as everyone else, dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief she had, I later learned, brought specifically for this purpose, having predicted her own reaction with impressive accuracy. Susie, seated in the front row on my side, mouthed something at me as Rita approached that I initially misread as a message about the flowers and later realized watching the video had actually been, "You're welcome," delivered with the specific smugness of a teenager who considered herself personally responsible for the entire relationship. I want to say I have a clear memory of the vows themselves, but the truth is I mostly remember the specific quality of Rita's hands in mine, steady in the way she always was even when I wasn't, and the sound of my sisters, all 3 of them, seated together, sobbing loud enough that the officiant paused once mid-sentence to let the moment pass, and thinking, somewhere underneath all of it, that 4 years ago I asked Rita to pretend to love me so my sisters would leave me alone. And now, here we are, those same sisters crying loud enough to interrupt our actual wedding, and I would not have traded a single second of any of it. "I do," I said, when it was time, and meant it with the specific certainty of someone who had spent 4 years choosing the same answer over and over, on purpose. I do, Rita said back, and the sound of my sisters absolutely losing it in the front row nearly drowned out the officiant announcing us married, which felt in retrospect entirely appropriate. The reception, mercifully, went off with considerably less chaos than the morning had threatened, Rika's spreadsheet holding, against all odds, exactly as advertised, right up until the toasts, at which point chaos reasserted itself as an inevitable, unkillable force of nature. Rika's toast ran 11 minutes, contained 3 separate anecdotes about the fake dating scheme that Rita had never actually heard in full detail before, and ended with a slideshow. An actual slideshow, complete with a laptop connected to the venue's projector, something Rika had apparently arranged without telling any other person in the wedding party. To trace our entire relationship from the amusement park ambush to the rooftop proposal, to a photo of me choking on rice at the infamous "When are you two getting married" lunch 2 years ago. "I've been saving that one," Rika said into the microphone over the sound of the entire room laughing. "I knew it would matter eventually." Mira's toast was shorter and considerably more composed, delivered with Daniel visibly beaming from the second table, and included the genuinely touching admission that watching her brother's relationship survive her own sabotage attempts had taught her more about what love actually required than anything else in her life, a sentiment that made Rita cry for the second time that day and made me privately, silently, grateful that my sisters had, eventually, learned the lesson the hard way instead of never learning it at all. Susie, now 18 and a legal adult by a margin of exactly 4 months, gave a toast that somehow topped her bridal shower speech in both length and emotional devastation, closing with the line, "Rita didn't just become my sister-in-law, she became the reason I know what a healthy relationship actually looks like. So honestly, Oppa, you're welcome too. I raised you both," which got the biggest laugh of the night and also somehow made my father cry for the second time. The first dance was, thankfully, chaos-free, just Rita and me, the two of us moving slowly to a song we'd argued about for weeks and finally agreed on, her head against my shoulder, both of us quietly acknowledging, without needing to say it out loud, that we'd made it through an entire circus of a wedding day and come out the other side exactly as married as we'd planned to be. It did not stay chaos-free for long. My sisters cut in, collectively, approximately 4 minutes later, and I spent the remainder of the reception being passed between 3 women who had spent 4 years alternating sabotaging and championing my love life, each of them whispering some version of the same thing into my ear at various points throughout the evening. "I'm proud of you. Don't mess this up. We love her more than we love you, honestly," until I finally escaped back to my actual wife sometime after midnight, both of us slightly drunk on champagne and the specific exhaustion of having survived our own wedding. We finally made it back to our hotel suite a little after 1 in the morning, both of us still half dressed in wedding formal wear, Rita's shoes dangling from 2 fingers as she kicked the door shut behind us. "We survived," she said, leaning back against the door, looking at me with the specific, warm exhaustion of someone who just finished the best and most chaotic day of her life. "Barely," I said. "Rika made me slow dance to 3 separate songs. I think one of them was a K-pop song from when I was 15. "I saw that. I have it on video. I'm never letting you forget it." I crossed the room toward her, and something in the air between us shifted the way it always did when the noise finally stopped, and it was just the two of us. The same shift I'd felt 100 times over 4 years, in a kitchen, on a rooftop, in the quiet after every family circus had finally cleared out and left only this. "Mrs. Kim?" I said, testing the shape of it for the first time. "You haven't decided if I'm keeping my name or not," she said, though she was smiling and her hands had already found the front of my shirt, working at the buttons with far less patience than the ceremony had required of either of us. "You have time to decide." "I have all the time in the world," she said, and pulled me down to meet her. The kiss was slow at first, unhurried in the way the whole day hadn't let us be, her hand sliding up into my hair, mine finding her waist, both of us finally allowed to just stand there and feel it. Married, alone, the noise of the reception still faintly ringing in my ears and mattering less with every second that passed. She laughed softly against my mouth when I fumbled with the clasp at the back of her dress, and I felt the sound more than heard it. And then she wasn't laughing anymore, just kissing me back with the same certainty she'd set her vows with hours earlier. Like this too was something she'd already decided a long time ago and simply was following through on. "Junho," she said, against my mouth, breathless, her forehead resting against mine. "Yeah, stop talking." I stopped talking. The rest of the night belonged only to the two of us. No sisters, no spreadsheets, no cameras. Just a married couple finally, completely alone. The morning after, Rita woke up first, sunlight coming warm through the hotel curtains, and found me already awake beside her, just watching her the way I still did sometimes, like I hadn't quite caught up to my own luck yet. The honeymoon was supposed to be simple. 10 days in Portugal, a rented villa on the coast, no family, no spreadsheets, no group chat. A plan Rita and I had agreed on months earlier with the specific, unspoken understanding that after everything, we deserved exactly this. Quiet, uninterrupted, entirely ours. We should have known better. It started small. A text from Rika on day 2, ostensibly innocent, asking how the villa looked, followed immediately by a request for the exact address in case of emergency, which I should have recognized immediately as a threat disguised as a courtesy. By day 4, Mira had somehow acquired photos of the villa's exterior, which she'd apparently found through what she described only as research, and had begun sending unsolicited restaurant recommendations for the area with the specific confidence of someone who had never actually been to Portugal. By day 6, Susie, now technically a legal adult, a fact she had not stopped mentioning since her toast, announced in the family group chat that she had, and I quote, always wanted to see Portugal, a statement Rita and I both correctly identified as a declaration of intent rather than a wistful aside. They wouldn't, Rita said, on day 7, looking up from her book on the villa's terrace with the specific wariness of someone who had learned over 4 years to never underestimate my family. I absolutely would, I said. They did. I discovered this on day 8, standing in the villa's kitchen making coffee, when I heard a taxi pull up outside and looked out the window to see all 3 of my sisters climbing out of it, luggage in hand, Rika already mid-sentence explaining something to the driver, Mira scrolling through what I assumed was a meticulously researched itinerary, and Susie filming the entire arrival on her phone with the specific narrative energy of someone documenting content. "Rita," I called out, with the particular flatness of a man who genuinely believed, for exactly 10 days, that he might get one uninterrupted honeymoon. "Your sisters-in-law are here." Rita appeared in the doorway, looked out the window at the taxi, and, to her eternal credit, did not scream, though her expression suggested she'd considered it seriously for a moment before rejecting the idea on logistical grounds. "We're not letting them in," I said. "We're absolutely letting them in," she said. "If we don't let them in, they'll simply stand outside filming a documentary about being locked out of our honeymoon, and Susie will monetize it." I considered this. That's a fair point. What followed was, against every reasonable expectation, one of the better weeks of my life, which I want to state clearly was not a sentence I expected to write about the week my 3 sisters uninvited themselves onto my honeymoon. They did not, to their credit, stay at the villa. Rika had booked a separate small house down the road with what she described as appropriate boundaries, a phrase that lost some credibility given that she showed up at her door by 9 every morning with pastries and the fully planned itinerary neither Rita nor I had requested. Mira spent most of her time on the phone with Daniel, back home, sending her photos of every meal with a level of detail that suggested she was building a genuine architectural record of Portuguese cuisine. Susie, true to form, documented everything, producing what she informed us would eventually become the sequel to some content she had apparently already made about our relationship without either of our knowledge or consent. There was a day trip to Sintra that Rika organized with military precision, complete with a spreadsheet, of course a spreadsheet, outlining the optimal order to visit the palaces to avoid crowds, which turned out to be, irritatingly, extremely useful. There was a dinner on our 6th night together, Rita's actual honeymoon, now also somehow a family reunion where my sisters, over several bottles of Vinho Verde, told story after story about the 2 years leading up to the fake dating scheme, most of which Rita had never heard, and by the end of it she was laughing so hard she had to set down her glass, wiping tears that had nothing to do with sadness at all. "I can't believe you sprinkled salt behind me," she said to Mira, for what had to be the 4th time that trip, still delighted by it every single time. "I can't believe it worked on absolutely nothing," Mira said. "You just kept showing up. It should have been so much easier to scare you off." "I don't scare easily," Rita said, and reached for my hand under the table, and I thought, watching her laugh with my sisters in the golden Portuguese evening light, that this, all of it, the chaos and the interruption and the spreadsheet and the uninvited arrival, was somehow exactly what our relationship had always been built out of, and I wouldn't have actually wanted the quiet, uninterrupted version we'd originally planned. There was, on the last night before my sisters finally, mercifully flew home, a full 3 days before Rita and I did giving us at last the quiet ending we'd originally intended, a moment on the villa's terrace where all 5 of us sat together, the ocean dark and enormous beyond the railing. Enrica, uncharacteristically quiet for a long stretch, finally said what I think all 3 of them had been circling for the entire trip. "We're really glad you exist," she said, looking at Rita. "I know we say it constantly at this point, but I mean it every single time. I don't think Opa would have ever figured out how to actually let anyone in if you hadn't shown up and refused to be scared off. You gave him practice being brave by making him defend you against us. That's kind of insane when I say it out loud, but I think it's true. You're the best thing that's happened to this family since I don't even know when," Susie said, not filming for once, just saying it plainly, the way she rarely did. "I'm really glad you're actually, legally my sister now." Rita was quiet for a moment, looking at the 3 of them in the dark, and then at me, and I watched something settle in her face that I recognized the day I'd proposed. The specific expression of someone who had found, against every reasonable expectation, an entire family she hadn't been born into, and had somehow ended up loving completely anyway. "I'm the lucky one," she said. "I got a husband and a built-in chaos committee. Most people only get one or the other." Rita and I had our real honeymoon, finally, in the 3 days after my sisters flew home. Quiet mornings on the terrace, long, unhurried dinners, the specific peace of 2 people who had built a marriage out of chaos and interruption, and had, at last, a few days entirely to themselves to simply enjoy having survived it. On our last night, sitting on the terrace with the ocean dark below us, Rita turned to me with the specific expression she got when she was about to say something she'd been thinking about for a while. "I've been thinking," she said, "about the wedding, about the honeymoon, about 4 years of your family being the most chaotic force I've ever willingly signed up for." "Regretting the whole thing?" "The opposite," she said. "I was thinking about what your sister said, about being glad I exist." She looked at me. "I've never had that, growing up. Not like that. Not a whole group of people who decided collectively, loudly, without shame, that they loved me and weren't going to stop saying so." She reached for my hand. "I used to think love was supposed to be quiet, careful. My family's not like yours. We don't say things 12 times a day. We don't cry at bridal showers. We don't show up uninvited to honeymoons with a spreadsheet." She smiled. "But your family taught me that love can also be loud and messy and completely without boundaries, and somehow that's not a flaw. It's just a different, better kind of devoted." "They really are a lot," I said. "They're everything," Rita said. "And so are you. I wouldn't trade any of it. The salt, the dossier, the amusement park ambush, the spreadsheet takeover, the honeymoon invasion. I got exactly the family I didn't know I needed, and exactly the husband I always hoped existed, even when I thought I was just doing him a favor pretending to date him." I pulled her closer, the ocean loud and dark below us, 4 years of chaos and choosing and rebuilding and choosing again, settling into something that finally, completely, felt like the beginning of the rest of it, instead of the end of any part. For the record, I said, it stopped being a favor about a week in. I just didn't have the nerve to say it for another 3 years. I know, Rita said. I've always known. I just liked watching you work up to it. We sat there until the last of the evening light disappeared entirely. Married, chaotic, entirely, completely chosen. And I thought about a fake relationship that started because 3 overprotective sisters made a normal life impossible and ended 4 years and 1 uninvited honeymoon later as the realest, fullest, loudest, most thoroughly interrupted love story I could possibly have asked for. If you followed Junho and Rita from that first fake dating scheme all the way to a honeymoon ambush in Portugal, thank you for staying for every single ridiculous, chaotic, deeply loving part of it. This is where their story ends. Married, complete, sisters included, spreadsheets and all. Leave a comment telling me which moment across this whole series you'll carry the longest. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this one. Thank you for being here for all of it.